老师晚上好。
你们好，你好，好，现在有一个下面的那个，
啊，你点一下这个全屏，你说这个，
对
对对对。
Music was important to the ancients. Since they did not have recordings, you had to make your own music. In ancient China, they had some special musical instruments. One was a set of chimes made of stone called a petrophone. They were triangular shaped rocks or pieces of jade that were carved to different sizes and dimensions in order to make different tones. So, how do you think you might draw a picture of a rock? Shi means stone. You can't draw a picture of a rock. You have to draw something that represents a rock, and that something is a chime. In the first oracle character, there is only a chime. In the second, we see a ko to indicate that it is a sound. In the third, the chime gets simplified. In the seal character, the chime looks like a cliff. In the modern character, the chime looks like two strokes. Shi is the remnant of the chime, and ko, mouth, is an indicator that it makes noise. How do you draw a picture of sound? Think about it. You have to draw a picture of something that represents sound, something that every ancient Chinese would recognize. Qing means chime. Qing is a pictograph. Shu comes from a pictograph of a hand with a mallet. The part sheng comes from a pictograph of a chime hanging from a string. Sheng means sound. You can see they added an ear, and of course, you can hear it with your ear, Later, the Chinese simplified it to just sheng. It's subject to simplification rule A223. This is a form of chime, sheng, hanging from a string, shi. Xing is the modern character for chime. They added a stone, shi, at the bottom, which is itself a chime. Du, or duo, means degree, from remnant guang, or yen, and remnant nian, which are originally from a chime. Below is a right hand, yo, hitting the chime. This indicates the hand is adjusting the size and shape of the rock, which changes the degree of pitch. Shu means numerous, various, or a multitude. We can see the oracle character comes from a rock or chime and a fire. The number 20, nian, also indicates many, and fire, huo, meaning light. Originally it meant to cook over hot rocks, now written ju. Pi now means a bolt of cloth, or a counter for horses. Pi originally meant pleasing, from the pleasing sound of chimes that match. You find the original meaning of match in the word pi pei, to match. It comes from a picture of several chimes which match and make a good sound. Duan means section. It is a combination of a hand with a mallet, shu, and the remnant pi on the left. This indicates different sections of the stone chimes, thus indicating section. Jia means false, from music chime, pi, and right hand, yo. It is originally from two hands trying to get the correct tone out of a set of chimes. It is subject to variant elimination rule C252. Jia means a person who is false.
鼠标点一下。然后点一下这个问题，结束共享。
好，有没有人有问题？你们的音乐会不会听到我？
可以。
对。你看到这个视频，你们都明白一个 petrophone 是什么东西吗？When you all know what a petrophone is now? Okay.
老师，
Yeah.
我想问一个问题。刚才老师在视频里说这个甲的是吗？老师，我可以在这里画吗？
可以。
可以可以。
啊，怎么画呢，老师？没有没有笔了。就是甲和甲，它本来是像那个甲字旁的，不是吗，老师？我发到群里了。
好，我把图片打开。
对。
老师，对，是这个甲，然后这个甲的，这个甲本来是有王字旁的甲，不是吗？不是，我写错了。这个，
王字旁是一字旁的甲。
但是他们两个的谐音为什么不一样呢？因为这个是甲，但是这个王字旁的是好像是侠。
瑕疵的瑕。
这个如果你看左边有一个所说的王字旁，这个全部都是玉字旁，这个是跟石头有关系的。
好。
If you see any character, everybody says Wang Zipang because it looks like a Wang. But actually, if you ever see this character on the left-hand side, it indicates a Yu or jade, and it indicates something that is made of jade. Yeah, so in this case, if you have a Yu Zipang de Jia, it means a flawed gem, something that's not right. If you have a Renzipang de Jia, it is a person who is not right. 所以这个甲都是差不多一样的意思。
好的，是。
那这个是我的分析，我没有听过别的人这样子分析。可是我觉得，我看这三个字一定有关系的，应该有关系的，这是我的分析。然后我想他们都应该是跟那个事情有关系的。So this is my analysis on all three characters, that these three characters, number one, the components, they have the same components, so they must be related. And number two, I think those components are a petrophone because in all cases it makes sense. And the jia, it originally meant false. 说文解字，他以为是一个皮，一个动物的皮，我不相信。The Showan thought that it was an animal skin, but I don't think that's true. So if you see a Wang Zipang or something that looks like it has a king on the left-hand side, it's always from a yu, which means stone of some kind. So it's a bad gem. And 你可以看这个 在那个这个甲，这是两个，我不会确定，可是我看两个手，然后因为甲的有的时候如果那个石头是有问题，这个是那个声音是不对的。
好的，老
现在
师。
再说，那个段也是在音乐里面的，他们有高声，那个频率很高的，频率很低的，所以他们有一段、两段、三段的、几段的声音，所以我觉得这个也是合逻辑的。
从第一个开始讲。
我不一定，现在可以，我现在讲这个，我不一定要是从第一个开始，我也是可以回来第一个。好，石头。所以我们从头开始，你像一个汉字，任何的汉字，你可以问你自己，你怎么可以画一个象形文字是代表那个意思？一个石头，你怎么可以画一个石头？你不能画一个石头，你必须要画一个东西是代表一个石头，也可能是大家都认识的一种石头。然后在古代的有钱的人的生活，他们有那个石青，石青英文叫 petrophone。So when you draw a picture of anything in Chinese, you should always ask, what is it a picture of? How can you draw a picture of a rock? You cannot draw a picture of a rock. You have to draw a picture of something that represents a rock. And in ancient times, the Chinese had this type of petrophone, rock chimes, and it had triangular jade rocks or ordinary rocks of different sizes that made different tones. 所以那个甲骨文你可以看一个三角形，如果你不知道古代的中国的日常生活，你可能不知道是什么意思。可是古代的中国人，他们看这个三角形，他们可能说，哦，那个可能是一个事情。可是这个事情也可以做一个声音。如果你不知道这个三角形是什么，你放一个口，这个口会给你一个印象是这个三角形的东西可以做一个声音，所以他们可能会知道这个是一个事情，然后事情是代表一个石头。So if the ancient Chinese saw a triangle shaped like that, they might easily recognize it as a chime. And if they didn't recognize it, if you added a mouth, they could think to themselves, oh, that's a chime that makes a sound. And since chimes were made of stone, they would realize, oh, okay, that represents a stone. 可是它会一直演变了，甲骨文呢，那个三角形变成一个角，然后在状体字、说文解字，他看了这个东西，他不知道是什么东西，他可能不知道，在汉代的时候，他那个书生写了说文解字的那个人，他可能不知道一个事情是什么，他以为是一个山坡，然后下面的那个口变成一个圆形。In the seal character, Shushan, the guy who wrote the 说文解字, he looked at it. He didn't know the ancient character. He knew it meant it was a rock. So he thought that it must be a cliff. And the circle on the bottom was a rock. But he was wrong. Then it got changed to the modern form. And we have a modern rock. Uh, 有没有问题？我看一看啊。
目前没有，老师。
有没有意见？如果现在的时候，如果你们要做一个石头，你们会画什么样的石头？If you were a modern person trying to make pictures of a rock, how would you indicate a rock that everybody would understand was a rock? You can think about this question. You would have to make a simple pictograph. What kind of a rock would everyone recognize today? 有没有人有没有什么想法？
好像圆形，
什么？
圆圆的，
圆圆的。可是如果你说一个圆圆的，也可能是一个保龄球。大家都知道一个保龄球是什么？
知道。
你知道？
知道。
A bowling ball 好，
这个问题特别有意思，我才发现的，这方面有什么有很高的难度，因为现在我想一想，但是想不起来一个最好的字，最好的专业表示的话，
现在
啊。
你可以画什么东西是代表一个石头？
现在不能，所以我觉得这个太难了。
对，这个
特别难。
对，现在很不容易，要思考好久。古代的中人很聪明。
对对。
好，下一个。现在我们看一个磬，一个简单的磬。我们刚刚说的那个石头就是一个磬，可是那个单独的那个构件，你可以看是一个手，一个甲骨文，是一个手拿了一个锤子，然后打了一个磬。可是这个磬，你可以看它的上面有一个身子。So you see this character, this component qing, which is not a common modern character, but it's a common modern component. It has a hand with a hammer or a stick, and it's hitting the chime. In this case, the chime is hanging on a string. 你可以看那个专体字，那个请它有另外一个表示方法，它有一个恶变，在石头里面它就是变成一横一撇，可是在这个请里面它变成一个眉毛的上面的那个东西。So you can see in the seal character how it changed, but it changed in a different way from how the character for rock changed. 那个庆是一个构件，可是现代的这个字，他们因为那个庆也可以代表声音，也可以代表那个石头，所以现代的汉字那个专体那个繁体字，他们有两个字，一个是庆，一个是声音的声。一个庆，他们下面加一个石头，所以这个上面你可以看一个石头，这个也是代表是庆，然后它有一个演变，现在是现在的庆。可是如果放一个耳朵在旁边，你可以看右边的，放一个耳朵，然后一个口，然后一个庆，你可以看它的演变。然后它变成一个繁体字，那个上面的繁体字是上面有一个青，下面有一个耳朵。So you see here that originally I want to teach you the component qing that you see at the top. It's not a common character, but it can represent two things. It can either represent the chime or it can represent the sound. So when it represents the chime, they added a rock on the bottom, which is just another way of writing chime. When it represented the sound, they added an ear on the bottom. And you can see that the chime, in this case, it got changed to a different kind of thing. Over there on the upper right, you see the component which also you will find in the character for eyebrow, 眉毛。所以那简体字，因为如果有一个清，然后上面有一个二，这个有一点他们觉得是太复杂，所以他们有那个简化汉字的规矩 A223。So when they decided to simplify the characters, they made the rule A223, and it got simplified into the modern character for sound, which is the top part, the sh is the string that the chime is hanging on. 有没有意见？有没有问题？我们分析一些别的汉字。那个清跟声大家都同意。这个度现在是几度的度。我们看现代的字，这个有很大的演变。我们看一个光或是烟，这个是一个恶变。那个念只是代表20个，这个也是一个恶变。下面有那个右手，那个跟有关系的。所以我们看那个专体字跟繁体字是一样的，差不多。 可是甲骨文我们可以看一个手，然后一个三角形，所以我们可以知道这个手可能跟一个情有关系。所以现在这个是度，像摄氏几度，或是华氏几度。So we have the character for du, which means degree. 华氏 means Fahrenheit. 摄氏 means centigrade. But in the modern character, we only have components. We have remnants, guang, which has nothing to do with the character, nian, which has nothing to do with the character. And we have a hand. But if we look at the oracle character, we can see the top part is actually comes from a triangle. So we have a hand and a chime. How does this translate as degree? Well, each chime has a different tone, so you can extrapolate to the idea of degrees. 所以这个字你可以看就是 degree。在英文，在西方的语言，他们都有这个演变，他们都有每一个字都有这样子的演变。可是因为汉字，所以我们可能会看古代的人的头脑的想法。如果你分析一个英文的 degree 这个字，你可能找不到原来的想法。有另外一个字是数，这个意思是很多的意思。上面也有一个光，一个年，上面有一个或。我们可以看它的演变，状体字没有改变，经文也有一点改变。可是甲骨文我们可以看是一个清，一个或。所以这个清不一定是一个清，可是可能是一定是一个石头。所以如果有一个石头，然后有一个或，这个是什么意思？在古代的人，他们做菜的方法有一个方法是他们会放那个让那个石头变成很热，然后放在水里面，让那个水会煮的。So we look at this character. The seal character doesn't change much. We don't know what it is. We know that it has a fire and something else. The bronze character, we still don't know what it is. The oracle character, we see that it's a chime and a fire. But what does that mean? Well, the chime doesn't have anything to do with sound. It represents a rock. So we have a rock and a fire. What does that mean? In ancient times, one form of cooking was to heat up rocks into the pot of water, and that would make the water boil. That was one way of keeping water hot, keeping the soup hot. You would take the rocks out, put them in the fire again. So there's a form of cooking called zhu, which this is the ancient character for that. 有没有问题或是意见？你们都睡觉吗？
没有。那老师，那个树跟那个折太阳的折，所以这个折是从这个树的来源是吗？ 折太阳的
对
是走正旁的。
对，这个折，我看，你说的是这个折是不是？
是的，老师。
对，所以我们分析一个汉字，如果我们不知道是什么意思或是什么来源，我们可以分析所有的，对这个。对，如果我们不知道那个字是什么东西，我们可以看很多的别的字是有同样的构建，然后我们可以问我们自己，有没有跟那个字有关系？所以我们常常用这样子的分析方法，会发生这个字的本来的意思，它的本意是什么样的？
好的，老师，谢谢老师。
那我看，对。可是在这边这个字可能就是一个标音符号，这个 cover，也是有关系的。有的时候我们不容易确定古代的中国人的头脑里面是想什么，他们发生一个汉字。可是如果我们一直思考，我们可以理解很多的古代的中国人的想法。We can't always be sure what the ancient Chinese were thinking, but the more characters we analyze like this, the more we can learn about how ancient Chinese thought and about how other ancient people thought. So I'll go over this again. P 现在是一块布，也是我们会说一匹马。我们有一个字叫匹配，所以我们有一个分析汉字的方法是这个单独的字，如果我们看字典，它可能说不清楚这个单独的字是什么意思。可是如果我们看词，有不同的词，比如说这个匹配，我们可能是搞这个字匹可能跟 match，可能跟匹配有关系的。所以如果你问别的人这个是什么来源，他们可能会给你一个别的故事。他们分析这个字可能跟我不一样。可是我看这个字，然后我想匹配。我们唱歌的时候，我们要匹配。我们弹琴的，打琴的，我们要匹配。这个是我们要 harmonize。所以这个字 match 也是 harmonize 的意思，所以可能跟音乐有关系。所以我看这个看得起来好像是那个琴。So I'll go over these characters again. When we look at this character P, it's modern character. It means a bolt of cloth. It's also a counter for horses. We say ipima, which means one of horses or one horse. And another way to analyze Chinese characters is if we don't have a clear meaning of what one character means, we can analyze character combinations. So we have this character combination, pipe. It means to match. And I look at the picture. This is my interpretation. Other people may have different interpretations, but I see the word pipe. When we sing songs, we have to match in harmony. And so I think maybe this has something to do with the matching of tones in the petrophones. It looks like a petrophone. So I come to the conclusion that it is a petrophone. And the pipe also means to harmonize. And harmony has to do with music. So 你可以思考，如果你有别的想法，你可以跟我说。可是我也是看有两个别的字，也有这个皮的构建，好像是差不多一样。有另外一个字是断。我们看一个手是搭了一个东西，这个东西好像是皮，然后它也是跟声音可能有关系的。如果是跟声音有关系的，这个 section 我们可以分开，是高频率、低频率的。然后，所以这个可能也是一个琴。然后你可以看它的演变，从古代的甲骨文的，或是金文的，一直演变到简体字或是繁体字。然后它的演变到现在的简体字或是繁体字。所以这个我在说这个so here we have duan, which means section, and a section, if you're a musician, you can also have, maybe it's a section of a petrophone. We have the high-pitched tones, low-pitched tones, and the middle tones. And when I analyze this, I see the left-hand part looks like the same thing as a P, and the same thing in Ja. You have a section on the right that looks the same as the P. These three characters are my interpretation. Other people may have different interpretations, but you must ask them, what is your logic? What is your evidence? In the case of Ja 就是不对的意思。说文解字以为是一个动物的皮。The Showan, he looked at this character and he didn't know what it was either. And he thought that it was a hand that was scraping the skin off of an animal, and somehow he associated that with being false. Again, we can analyze several characters where this is a component and think maybe it has something to do with the different characters. One of them was in the simplification rule, we're very interested in people who are fake, liars. So we have a 人字旁的家. And 我不知道谁刚刚说了那个王字旁的家. And whenever you see a character with a wang on the side, it always comes from jade, and it always has something to do with a rock, in this case, a flawed rock. In my rule here, you see the 2013. In 1955, they made a rule that said this character should be banned, and only the ren zibang, only the one with a ren person on the side should be used. But in 2013, they made a new list of acceptable simplified characters. And so if you see this 2013, that's my notation. It means after 2013, it was resurrected, and so it's no longer a banned character. 好，现在有没有意见或是问题？
没有。
没有问题。所以这个我们今天说的词是跟音乐有关系。And it seems that today we're talking about characters that are related to music. It seems that music has always played an important part in all civilizations. If you're from Europe or North or South America, you probably went to church and they had music there, ritualistic music, like they had in ancient China. And the second part will talk about ritualistic music in ancient China. Anybody have anything to say? 有没有人意见或是问题吗? Any questions or anybody want to say anything?
要休息一下40多分钟了，
啊，
我可以在第二节课放2个视频。
Okay, so we'll take a break for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll talk about more characters having to do with music.
好的，老师。
好的，老师。
Drums and other musical instruments have more than just music, ritual, and other value. You have probably heard the term beating the drums of war. It was the spring and autumn period. It was 684 BC. Qi state had sent troops to attack Liu state. At the time, Qi state, or Qi Guo, was strong, but Liu state, or Liu Guo, was weak. Duke Zhuang, or Zhuanggong, was the Duke of Liu. Cao Gui was an ordinary person who knew a lot about war. Qi state was about to attack Liu state. Cao Gui asked to go along into the battle with the Duke. The Duke said, okay. The Qi army was hyped for war, and they beat the drums the first time. Cao Gui said, not yet. The Qi army beat the drums the second time, and Cao Gui said, not yet. The Qi army beat the drums the third time, and Cao Gui said, okay, now we go. The Qi army was defeated, bang. The moral of the story is that with the first drum beat, everyone was hyped for war. But by the third drum beat, they were tired and worried and a little afraid that they may not win. So you can see drums are very important in the old days. Drums were part of rituals also. They had rituals to celebrate when things were bountiful. Ju, not a common character, is a basic ancient character for drum. It is a drum with a bass and a decoration on top. Sometimes it was pronounced shu, and meant the same as Jew. Jew, also not a common character, means to stand up. It comes from the related phonetic Jew, meaning drum. It must have been a standing up type of drum as opposed to a drum hit from the top. Gu is the usual modern character for drum. It is a hand beating a drum. Peng is now only a surname, but originally it meant to beat a drum. The shan indicates the beating action. Chu means kitchen, from the remnant han or an, and now pronounced chang, from the building guang or yan, and do, from the phonetic shu, meaning to stand up, ju. Chu fang means kitchen. Shu means a tree. Ju was the phonetic, and then Ju got simplified to a yo, subject to simplification rule A 232. Hao, 你们有没有问题？有没有意见？所以我们看这几个字，古代的中国人的古是有一个特殊，上面有一个不知道是什么东西，可能是一个花。你看周边的那个就，这个是最古代的、最基本的构建，现代的构建，这个是一个古的构建，可是现在读就，这个是一个 drum。你可以看那个下面那个中间的这个是那个鼓，下面是那个台，上面是一个 decoration， 然后它演变到转体字，转体字的跟现在的就是差不多一样，很像。可是这个字就不是一个常用的字，可是是一个常用的构建，所以我们必须在这边要学。So we see here a drum, and there's a bunch of characters that are related to drums. And there's a lot of rituals that are related to music. And so these rituals are also related to things like war. The story I just told you is about how, in English, we have the word, the drums of war. When we go to war, even in the West, even in Europe, they would always have a drummer and a bugle boy that would play some music when they went to war. It's kind of a strange thing, music and war. We also have, guo ge, which is usually about war. Anyway, 这个ju is a component. You should know it by itself. It's a component in several other characters, to which I will explain. Ju 就是粘起来的意思。不太清楚为什么是粘起来，可能是有的鼓是粘的，有的鼓是好像是烫的，可能是有的鼓是右边、左边要打那个鼓。你可以看这个是一个手打了一个鼓，这个读ju，它读体的不是一个很常用的词，可是我们这堂课可以看是有两个字。它做一个标音符号。So here we have another character, ju. It means to stand up. Dogs The dogs are excited about something. So back to the character ju, it means to stand up. There were two kinds of drum, or several kinds of drums in the old days. One of them light, flat, and you hit it from the top. The other kind was a big drum, and you hit it from both sides. And you have chun, which means inch. But you can see it's a hand with a dot. And if you see chun, it doesn't always mean inch. It just means that there's a hand hitting a drum. It's one way to write a hand hitting a drum. Anyway, it's probably hitting a drum on the side, and it means to stand up. But we'll see that it's a component in a couple of other important characters. 最常用的是鼓，鼓是现代的普通的词，这是drum。然后在右边你可以看，如果看转体词，你可以看那个手，他拿了一个指，然后他打鼓。大部分的时候我们看右边的，如果是一个手，我们有一个谱或是一个书，可是在这个鼓里面呢，我们有一个特别的构件，这是个手拿了一个指，然后打了鼓。We have here the common character for drum, gu. It's a very common character, so you should learn it, but it has a couple of components. On the left, we have zhi, which is the drum we've been talking about. On the right hand, we have zhi, which means a branch, but it's kind of unusual. It has a hand holding a branch that's hitting the drum. Usually on the right-hand side, we have either a shu or a pu, but in the character for drum, we have a special case of a hand hitting the drum. Then we have a lot of people in China named Peng. We also have, it's also a sound like peng, 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 peng. It means it's supposed to be the sound of hitting a drum. So you have a Ju on the left-hand side and a Shan on the right-hand side. Those three marks indicate you're hitting the drum 3 times. 在中国我们有很多的人姓彭，这个彭也是一个标音符号，我们说砰砰砰，这是打鼓的一个那个声音。所以这个姓彭的人，你们都是打鼓的人。有没有人有意见或是问题？有没有？会不会听到？有没有人在？
在老师。
所以有没有人姓彭？没有。好。对，现在有2个字，一个是厨房的厨，这个是 kitchen。可是现在的厨房是有一个二变。我们看一个豆跟鼓没有关系，可是我们看鼓的下面有一个豆的构件，这个是一个 accident， 一个玩意。我们刚刚看到那个字，那个字，它是站起来的，一个就这是站起来的意思。我们看这边有一个春，有一个春，有一个字。可是这个春跟字有一个恶变，这个字变成一个豆。然后本来我们有一个 光或是烟。现在那个字，大部分的人读光，因为这个是一个简化的恶变，可是它本来读烟，它本来就是一个房子的意思。可是它也有一个恶变，它变成一个墙。那个墙现在读墙，因为那个也是一个简化的方法。可是本来它读寒，这是一个山坡的意思。可是你可以看这个厨房，最右边的厨房是最标准的厨房。你可以看外面是一个房子厨，然后里面有一个标音符号住。可是那个标音符号有一个先有那个外面那个房子有一个恶变，然后里面的那个标音符号有一个恶变，所以现在的出放的出是完全不合理的。So in the last frame, I gave you the character ju, which means to stand up. It's important because it's a phonetic in a couple of important characters. The character for kitchen, you can see on the bottom, the seal character, and on the top you have a guang. Now most people call it guang because it's a simplification of a character called guang. But originally it was pronounced yen and it meant building. So you see this, it's a building and it's pronounced like Jew, but it's now pronounced Chu. So the seal character is the original character for kitchen. And on the right-hand side, you can see the traditional character, Chu Feng. That's the correct way to write it. But first of all, the roof gets distorted. And you have an older character, Chu Feng. And it becomes the component, which is, most people call it Chang, but actually that's a simplification. It was originally pronounced Han and meant a cliff. So the logic is slowly destroyed. Then the modern simplified character, which is also a traditional character, you have something that looks like inside something that looks like a Chun and a Han, and it makes no sense at all. But if you know where it comes from, if you know where it comes from, then it's logical. 所以这个是厨房的来源，厨房的厨。有没有人有问题或是意见？没有。有另外一个重要的一个汉字，我们刚刚学了那个住，是在另外一个字也是很有名的，就是树的意思，树就是 tree 的意思。所以本来那个繁体字旁边有一个住，这是一个标音符号，所以这个字读住，然后它的旁边有一个木字旁，所以这个是非常合逻辑的。然后他们简化这个字，他们有一点神经病，他们把那个就变成一个优秀的优，然后有现在的简化的书的这个字，所以现在简化的这个字是完全不合理的，完全不合逻辑的。So the character we studied, Chu, is now used in three characters. One is Chu Feng, which means kitchen. The other is Shu, which means tree. If we look on the right-hand side of the traditional character, we have a Ju, which is a phonetic. It means to stand up. A tree, of course, stands up. So it's both a phonetic and a semantic. But when they simplified the character, they changed half of it into a yo, which is ridiculous. So the modern simplified character has pretty much lost all its logic. 所以这个有没有意见？有没有问题？喂，你们睡觉吗？
没有，没有老师。
没有，没有睡觉。好，我有一个好学生，有一个好学生。所以，现在我再给你看一个视频。Niyajirdu can be directly translated as the ritual and music system. It is a complex discussion of ritual, li, and music, yue. It is a collective name for a series of social customs and music formulated and spread by the royal family of the Western Zhou dynasty. It is said that it was created by the Duke of Zhou together with the patriarchal system. It constituted the entire ancient Chinese social system and had a huge impact on the political, cultural, art, and thought of later generations. The ritual and music system is divided into two parts, ritual, li, and music, yue. The ritual part formally regulates the correct outward social behavior, including what kind of etiquette and obligations each person should perform. The music part creates a unified and harmonious social atmosphere by formalizing poetry repertoires and the structure of group music performances. We will discuss several characters related to ritual and music. Li means ritual. It usually refers to rituals. The bottom part is a drum and the extra top part is debatable. The usual explanation is that it comes from a string of jade pieces, yu, in which case it would have been an offering of jade. Li fu means rich. Li means ritual. Shi indicates that they were religious in nature. It is subject to the simplification rule A153. Li is an older alternate form. Feng means abundant, lush, bountiful, plenty, and drum. The bottom part is the drum discussed above. The extra top part is debatable. The usual explanation is that it comes from feng, which means a stalk of grain or other crops. So it would be referring to a celebration for reaping a good harvest. The modern simplification is from the idea of a stalk of grain, feng, from the remnant feng, and the drum, zhu. It is subject to the simplification B032. Yan means a beautiful woman, from color, se, and drum, feng. It is subject to the variant elimination rule C673. Note that the character do sometimes seems to be a part of characters concerning drums. Do, which now means bean, comes from a type of ritual vessel and has nothing to do with drums, except for the pictographic similarity. So, as I was making this video. Actually, I've analyzed thousands of characters, and I came up with quite a few characters that have something to do with music. Well, I'm not a musician myself, and I never thought about it too much. But when I was doing this research, I found out more about how important music and ritual was in ancient China. And then I realized it's really, really important in the West. If you were from Europe or America or South America, you probably grew up in a church. And they, like the Catholic Church of many years ago, and even today, has a whole lot of ritual. You don't just go there to hear about God. You go there and the priest is all dressed up and there's all kinds of ritual. And there's all kinds of music too, special kinds of music, religious music. So it's music and ritual are very important in every society, Muslim society too. You go to the mosque and you have the same thing, a whole lot of ritual and types of, only certain types of music that can be performed. And on a national patriotic level, you have pomp and circumstance. You have soldiers that march. In China, China is very famous for the soldiers that march down the street, and their feet are very close together. So this is actually pretty important in many societies. 所以我们现在看这个鼓，下面的这个 dog， 下面的这个礼就是 ritual。这个下面是一个鼓，我们可以确定是一个鼓，可是上面的东西我们不容易确定，有不同的人有不同的观点。传统的很多的人说，这个上面是两个鱼，他们因为像一个教堂一样，你有一个活动，有礼，大家都要带那个祭祀，那个 offering，然后有大部分的人说，这个上面的东西是一群玉的石头。So li means ritual, and you can see that it's from a drum. Nobody questions that. But on the top, we have a couple of things that they're debatable what they are. Most people, the Showan says that they are strings of jade, which were brought as an offering. The ritual would probably be a harvest ritual, maybe. So a lot of people say that that's a string of jade as an offering. If we closely examine all of the seal characters and bronze characters, it becomes very questionable. There are lots of different forms and they could be different things. But Li means ritual. The modern character, 这个单独的li你现在很少看，可是右边的li旁边有一个是，是跟神有关系，跟祭祀有关系。然后旁边有一个li，这个li也可以说是一个表音符号，可是这个大家都同意也是一个表意符号。我们有一个简化的汉字，这是简化规矩 简化规矩是 A153，所以你可以看有这个简体字跟繁体字，有2000年以前，他们也有两个不同的写法。你在左边你可以看那个正确的简体字的写法，右边你可以看另外一个写法，另外一个写法是跟现在的简体字有关系。有人说这个是祭祀的学。So on the right-hand side, we have the modern character li, which means ritual. We have the modern word li bai. Li bai tian means Sunday. It means the ritual offering to heaven. Li bai tian. The ritual offering to heaven. Li bai tian. Li bai tian is a Chinese word, but it comes from the Christians. The other Chinese word for Sunday is Xing Qi which means the star date of the sun. It's also related. But Li is an offering. And 我们可以看那个简体字，那个单独的li的简体字跟礼拜的礼的简体字有一点不一样，可是你可以看得出来还是同一个字。有另外一个字是风，风这个礼跟风，它们的基本的意思是差不多，是 abundant, lush, bountiful， 就是很丰富的意思，丰富的意思。可是你也可以看这是一个gut 的来源。下面你可以右边的你可以看那个简体字跟力很像，甲骨文也是很像。甲骨文跟经文的来源有很多的不同的观点，因为如果我们分析很多的甲骨文的字，很多的经文的字，这个上面的东西是不一定。所以这个大部分的人的观点，他们我们看这个甲骨文上面是好像两个木，所以这个可能是代表我们的受力的。So this character feng, it is very similar to the character li, except it's pronounced different. It means abundant or lush, bountiful. And when we look at the seal character, we can be sure that on the bottom is a drum. And on the top, again, we have something that is debatable. Most people think it's a harvest ritual where people bring in the harvest. In this one oracle character, you see it looks like a tree, which represents a plant, which represents a harvest. And so it gets the feng is that offering, the harvest offering. But if we examine many different oracle characters and seal and bronze characters and other ancient characters, it becomes that we're not too sure what the top part is. In any case, it means abundant and plenty. So we have the simplification rule, B032. 所以这个字是下面有 ju， 我们可以确定是一个 gu， 然后上面有风，大部分人以为是grain。最后一个字是燕，这是一个漂亮的女的。丰富就是 abundant， 所以这个女的她有 abundant something。This woman has an abundance of something. We don't know what. 旁边有风，右边有色，色就是有颜色，色也本来是一个漂亮的女的，她单独的也是漂亮的，一个漂亮的女的，色也是有色朗的，也是有新的意思。所以他们有一个规则，有3个字，本来有3个不同的字。我们看那个规则 C673， 然后现代的燕，这个颜色的燕的旁边，这个是一个比较新的一个字，几百年以前。原来的转体字是右边的那2个字，是旁边有一个和，可是现在我们大部分的就是写那个有颜色的燕。So this character means a beautiful woman. On the left-hand side, we have a feng, which means abundant. It means the woman is abundant in some aspect that makes her beautiful. And on the right-hand side, we have a se, which means color. It also means sexuality. And it originally also referred to a beautiful woman, se. So yen is the word se often has sexual connotation, but the word yen just means beautiful. And so we have a feng and a se. 所以这个是今天的字。我们还有一点时间，我们可以说，你们可以问问题，或是说你的意见。
那叔叔，可以跟他们说一下考试的事情。
So I have to give you a test. I think I'll give you 2 tests. One is a midterm. It's well past the midterm, but I will send that test to you tomorrow. It'll be 50 questions, multiple choice, and I'll probably give you several days to do it because the questions, some of you may find the questions a bit difficult, but if you've been listening to my course, you won't find them difficult. 所以现在有给你们一个考试，这个学期要给你2个考试。明天我可以给你一个考试，是有50个问题。这些问题我给你几天的回答。如果你听了我的演讲，如果你好好的听我的演讲，这个考试不应该很难。如果你没有听了我的演讲，你可能要再研究一下。So I'll try to give you the test, the midterm test tomorrow. So we have a few minutes, a bunch of minutes left, but let's get some of your ideas about ritual and music and how music affects language. We have the word harmony. Oh, wait a minute. 有一个字还没有讲，和这个字，
哪个和？
和平的和。
啊，
这个还没有准备。Oh, so well, there's a bunch of other characters that have to do with music, and so let's talk about music in the remaining minutes. Let's talk about music and ritual. I thought about military parades and marching bands and the drums of war. There you go.
嗯
So 你们可以思考这个问题。在你的自己的语言，我们英文有一个字叫 harmony。我今天没有准备那个要说那个字，下个星期。可是你可以说跟我说你的意见。音乐
老师，
呀，你说。
老师，我想问一下，刚才老师最后放的那个视频里，最后一段的，有说到跟豆是不是跟那个梨有关系？
因为那个有的是无意的，豆是一个 ritual vessel，在古代的中国，他们有一个梨的一个，你可以叫一个豆吗？
嗯，好，
在古代的时候，他们有一个 ritual vessel，叫豆，然后有没有一个图形？可以叫一个图形吗？
好，
等一会儿我给你看。
是
这个是个豆。在古代的中国，他们有一些东西，英文叫 ritual vessels。然后这个豆，它镀豆，然后他们呢，因为他们不能画一个豆子的豆，所以他们用这个字是代表 beans。In ancient China, they had ritual vessels. A number of words, a number of Chinese characters come from different Chinese ritual vessels. This is one of them. And it was pronounced dough. And so they borrowed the word to say bean. But when you write characters, it ends up that the bottom part of drum looks like the character for dough. So sometimes it gets confused. 所以这个也看得出来有一点像一个鼓，可是这个是一个豆。所以看得出来是一个豆，可是这个就是汁的一部分，是鼓的一部分。有没有别的观点或是意见
老师，
关于
谢谢老师。
音乐？
老师，
呀，你说。
那个在聊天窗口有同学问，有同学在聊天窗口提问，礼物。
礼物，对，在问礼物。
如果礼是一个 ritual，
对，
你能看清楚吗？
礼物，对，礼物。Ritual, when we go see somebody, we're not required to bring a gift, but it's a Chinese ritual to bring a gift. The people don't really need a gift usually, but it's related to a ritual. and 生日节，你的生日节，还有圣诞节，还有你去访问一个人，你给他们一个礼物，这个你不需要给他们，可是这个是因为礼，也是礼貌，所以这个是跟礼有关系的。这个是回答你的问题吗？
穿越历，
如果你
日历，
对，
谢谢老师，明白了。
所以有的时候我们when we have two words, we want to think of the relationship and how it got from one place to another. Any other comments or questions? Think about ritual. Think about music. And it's interesting that people don't just like any old kind of music. I never listened to music. In most of my life, I rarely listened to music. Then one day when I was 58, I took some medicine and suddenly music sounded good to me. So in the next year, I downloaded 3,000 songs. So I never liked music until I was 58. But the songs I downloaded were songs from India, Africa, Southeast Asia, China, Arabia. 我下载的那个歌都是不是美国的流行歌？美国有一些流行的音乐队，然后美国人他们就是听美国的音乐队，他们对印度的音乐、对中国的音乐、对阿拉伯的音乐都没有兴趣。这个为什么？每一个国家，大部分的国家都是这样子，中国人也是。为什么？中国人50年以前他们喜欢那个pentatonic music，然后我从一个西方的观点，这个很讨厌，很不好听。可是最近的50年，中国人都开始喜欢那个 modal music，西方的音乐。你可以说你的意见，你可以说音乐跟礼 music and ritual, how does it affect you? 我们现在还有10分钟，我们可以谈话，谈音乐跟ritual。
老师，我还有问刚才的那个豆，因为刚才我看到的那个字是土豆的豆，是吗，老师？还是我看错了？
哦，对土豆的豆，对，土豆的豆就是那个，它原来是那个 ritual vessel 的，可是因为它读豆，所以它用在还有头发的头，头发的头，这个旁边有一个叶，头发的头，它跟豆子的豆，很像，可是右边的是一个叶，叶也是头的意思，所以这个叶我们不要读叶，我们要读 头，所以我们可以旁边放一个豆，做一个标音符号。可是他们简化这个字，他们这个也可以用草书。这个也，如果用草书都可以这样子，然后它变成这样子，所以这个草书，这个是一个叶的草书，他们简化这个头，他们把那个豆子的豆丢掉，然后留下来一个叶，然后这个叶的草书、新书跟草书慢慢变成现在的简体字的头，所以这个豆子很重要的。
谢谢老师。
关于音乐汉字里有没有别的问题或是观点？现在
41，还好，就几分钟了。对，
所以这个有没有人意见？有没有人问题或是观点，或是要说话？如果这样子，现在可以早一点下课，然后我明天可以给你们的考试。好，下个星期。